I'm actually hoping that some of this stuff gets clarity because I think this is stupid. I think that eBay is doing something that is dumb in a climate of competition. All right, y'all, no walk up from that shed today, just to walk up with the pup because it's raining out here. And I have a sweatshirt on. I cannot believe it's this chilly out here. This should be a good show. Thanks for joining us. Hello again, everybody. We are in the Commonwealth cabin. Thank y'all for joining us today. I do feel much better. I'm still not quite perfect, but I'm good enough. I'm excited to get out here and do this video. We are going to not do a ton of sales, but this topic, well, we have some, I guess. Got a couple good ones in there. We'll talk about those too, but I'm going to start off this video. I usually don't do current events like right after they occur. I usually don't. For the biggest reason is I don't like to be wrong. And I don't like to give bad information out there. And so I'm going to take a chance here because this is well after this has come out already. But that's okay. And I'm still waiting for another shoe to drop. Sometimes there's not quite, there's clarity that comes through. But this is going to be about eBay Promoted. And I'm also pretty hesitant to get in the weeds about this subject. But I'm going to. I think it's important in the big scope, the big macro picture here. So I want to talk about promoted listings a little bit today. The big changes that have occurred overseas, basically. Let's see, eBay, Australia, and UK, and France, and Italy, and Spain, I think. So there's been a lot of talk. I've got a lot of messages. I do have, whenever I talk about this, it's like, why are you talking about this? You're not the right one to talk about this. And I'm like, well, there's two perspectives to things. And yes, I don't do promoted listings. And I think because of that, I want to talk about this particular topic today. I'm going to pick one thing, two things. We're going to dig into it. This is not affecting U.S. sellers yet, but the speculation, if you've watched different videos, I think Tech did a video on it too. That was the second time I had heard about it, and I was getting messages in, and he does one where he's going to get into the weeds a little bit. I'm hoping by the time this video comes out, some of this stuff's still relevant. I'm actually hoping that some of this stuff gets clarity because I think this is stupid. I think that eBay is doing something that is dumb in a climate of competition. And I have one buddy in here today, and he don't care about any of this promoted stuff. But look, you can stop. That's my favorite chair. All right, let's get back here. I'm hoping this is back. Nope, it's already not back here. I only keep books in 3 places, and I think this book, there it is right there. I picked this one up super cheap down in, where the heck was I at? This is Peaches to Beaches. It was off the beaten path, actually. And this Masters book, some of these go for big bucks. You get the 86 one, you can get a ton of money. $1,999. This one sold for 50 bucks. Every year they put out one, and this one, it's like a yearbook, I guess you want to call it, for each particular year. And whoever wins really helps the value, along with some other things here. There's Norman. And that one sold for, I think Mike Weir won in 1999, a lefty. And that one sold for 50 bucks plus shipping. So yes, I just realized I'm wearing my John Daly shirt, sweatshirt. At any rate, this one right here, y'all, this is a tough one for me. And I don't promote, but I still think eBay, for all of our best interests, needs to do some things that are in all of our best interest. And I think this is a bad decision for both those who promote and those who don't promote. I think if this were to be implemented here, this would be bad. However, and I'm going to tell you what it is, which a lot of you already know. Now what are you doing? You're going to chew on a license plate. I might have to get Poncho out of here. A lot of times he's distracted when Wallen is here. So anyway, so I'm going to talk about just promoted in general. And I realize a lot of people promote. Some people ask me all the time, what percentage of people do you think promote? That's a tough number to nail down. I will just tell you, when I look at, I don't promote. I promote very rarely. Like maybe 1% of my items, maybe. And I look at those suggested, how many people in this category promoted, if you ever see those. Some categories I see as low as 20%. Some I'm seeing like 55% of people listing an item in that category are promoted. And I used to ask myself, I'm like, if everybody's promoting, what's the point? Because you're not getting ahead of anybody else. And I think in some ways that is the downfall of this system. But there are so many people who do promote, and then when they get out of promoting, their sales go way down. So I'm going to make a suggestion here that I've never really made before. If you are new to eBay reselling, I would not promote at all And that's crazy to some people that are like, well, how is a new person going to get sales? List it cheaper. List it cheaper. That's how I would start. I don't know the dynamics of getting in and getting out and doing all that. I just don't promote. And my model, my business model has been around the idea that I'm not going to promote an item. And so sometimes that means it's going to have to be better in some other way. The listing itself, the picture itself, the item itself. Or sometimes it's just the price. The reason I don't come out and say stuff like that is because there are a lot of people who do promote and they believe it is the best way to do it. And to be honest with you, in some models, some ways, I do too. So I'm not trying to insult anybody who does promote. I think, like I just said, those numbers, at least I would say 1 out of every 3 people promote almost everything. So I'm not saying this isn't the best way to do it. What I'm saying is I really think eBay is making this system so, I hate to throw around the word greed, right? Because we're all greedy, all of us. I don't care what anybody says. It's just a different level of greed for different people. That's just the way I see it. We're all trying to make a buck. We're all trying to feed our families. We're all trying to do those things. So we all look out for our own self-interest. Even if we say we don't, we really do. So I'm not terribly critical of having a promoted listing system, but man, the dynamic system is just, in my opinion, it's out of control. When I see some of these folks out there, and at the end of the day, their bottom line is like 25% in fees, 30% in fees for some, it's crazy to me. And it's like, where is this thing going to end? And of course, a lot of people will tell me who do promote, I'm not arguing with people. You've got to do what's in your own best interest. And that's different for different people. But hey, look at this. There's a spider web on the witch. Huh. I really think that the promoted part, you know, people will argue, they'll say, hey, well, I only get charged that if it sells. Well, that is changing for some people if it sells via promotion. And that's changing, and this is, well, it's changing for some people overseas. It might be changing for us, unless I have misconstrued something here. This witch right here does have a couple issues on it, y'all. But it's still cool. Sold for, and it works, sold for $50 plus shipping. I'd rather sell this for 50 than that for 50, because that's going to be a pain to ship. But we'll do it. Oh, I had to kick Poncho out. I'm kind of sad. I feel bad for him. But, man, he started getting on that one, too. How do you suggest I fix this? I love this chair so much, but I don't want to bore you with that right now. Let me see if he's still sitting out here. Yep, there he is right there. Now he's chewing on the rug. Oh, my. He's in a chewing mood today. I'm kind of in a chewing mood, too. I love eBay, y'all. I always have loved eBay. eBay has helped me provide for my family. They create a great marketplace, and to be honest with you, it better be great at this point, and it better be growing, because there is a climate of competition out there. And there are options. And you've seen me take some of these strange options not too long ago, and I'm pushing them pretty hard because I feel like I don't want to be locked into a system that is, I don't want to say gamed, but in some ways it is. And there's levels of gaming. I mean, we do that on some of our Dibdit marketplaces, right? Where you can be a subscriber for, it's pretty cheap, and you get a % off or whatever and get into featured. I'm okay with some of that stuff. What I'm not okay with is changing the rules in the middle of the game. And I hope that's not what's going to happen here. It looks like it has happened, unless another shoe drops before this video comes out, where, you know, it used to be that if somebody clicked on an item, if you're using, you know, dynamic listing or dynamic promotion that goes up and down based on how many people are promoting it, and those numbers get so hot. But it still used to be that you only got charged that fee unless somebody found that item, or if somebody found that item through the promotion itself, which makes sense, right? No sense in charging somebody a fee if it didn't help you make the sale. And so if somebody clicked on that, there was a 30-day window, they come back and buy it, they originally saw it there, and they charge you the fee. That's okay to me. What's not okay is if somebody clicks on that ad, and then after the fact, somebody else who didn't click on that ad buys it. You didn't get charged that promotion fee, but apparently now, with the language the way it is, that's why I'm couching this, because when this comes out, I want it to be right, in case there's some kind of clarification here. The fee's going to go anyways, because somebody clicked that ad, even if it didn't lead to a sale. That, to me, is mind-blowing and a very stupid decision. And honestly, it's stupid in many ways, and I'm going to kind of address all of them. But let me start with one that I think is the biggest problem here. Here's some more RC Cola cups. I put 10 out here the other day and said they sold for 22. I don't know why I did that. But I knew the other lot had sold, so I put it right here. Actually, we're selling 5 RC Cola cups for $22 plus shipping, and we're into them for pennies, so it's a nice little profit. I said before, there's a climate of competition that has not been seen ever in the digital reselling space, in my opinion. There's marketplaces that are growing. There's upstart marketplaces like mine that I started, and quite frankly, this was one of the major reasons why I started with Dave and Carrie on the Dibdit, like on the Dibdit 8 right now. Because, and people, boy, when we did that, they're like, you know, you think you'll ever be able to compete? Whatever. I'm like, I doubt it. I doubt it. But I don't have to have the biggest marketplace in the world to be effective. You can be a big fish in a small pond, or you can be a, I got that right? You can be a big fish in a small, I don't even know what I'm saying. I think I had it right, and I just stopped. I got to go take care of these dogs real quick. They're out here getting soaking wet. My wife's not happy. I'll be right back. All right, back to it. So I'm not just talking about other marketplaces' fee structure. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about, because Amazon's had, you know, moving fee structures, all kinds of craziness for years. I'm talking about a fee structure that in essence is going to raise the prices of items. I know so many people who promote who say, well, I can get this much more for an item because I promote, because it's out there and it's the first one they click. And that's true. You can get more money for an item sometimes than people who don't promote, because it's the eyeballs. The eyeballs really matter. But at some point, people are going to search out the lower priced items. That's what they want. And so the average buy cost for an item is costing you market share not every time, but in general, it's costing you market share. They're feeding their competition through this, because eBay could be a place where you marketed it towards, hey, you could find a better deal on eBay. Now, I don't think that that's their strategy and that's the way they want to go forward with it. And I get that too, right? You don't want to be, just like us as resellers, you don't necessarily want to be selling the $3 items. You know, you want to be selling the high dollar items. You make more money, possibly. Depending, you know, there's only so many hours in the day. But man, eBay needs to be a place, in my opinion, secondhand goods, a lot of it, where there are deals to be had. And the more you push these fees up, the cost is going to go up for these items. And so if people are putting their items at a higher point to cover those fees, there's a place for us folks who don't promote, who can come in right there. That's why I'm not always necessarily above the market. Sometimes I am. Sometimes I'm below that market, because I know I can get that sale. And so some people might say, well, you know, you have to do 25% off sometimes on stuff that doesn't sell. Well, I do, like this thing right here. I do. But you know what? I think in the end, for me, it works out better doing it that way. I really, really do. Now, not many of my items sell. We wrap this so it doesn't fall over the place. Not, I would say, I don't know, maybe 15, 20% of my, that's high. I'd say less than that. Less than 15% of my items I have to sell on a clearance sale, if you will. I'll send 5% offers or whatever. But personally, I would rather give the discount to a buyer. I really would. I think it encourages more buying in the end and repeat customers. That's my opinion. So especially when you have all this other stuff added on. I better talk about the items here. This is a phone that I could have got more money out of this. You'll notice it's not in there. I didn't go in there and detail it and clean it. That's probably why I didn't sell full price. And sometimes I do on the higher ends. This isn't a terribly high-end one. And so it got just under $17 plus shipping. This is a phone where if I did all the work, it'd get 25, but the time doesn't make sense. But I'll still take it. It was $1 buy. The second part of the competition is purely the fee structures out there. Like, and I'm going to talk, this is not a promotion of my Dibdit marketplaces. This is the rationale by why I started these. I thought to myself, you know what? It doesn't take a massive audience. If you have a limited amount of sellers and the buyer base is big enough, there can be success. And we've proven that. Well, I'll go over the numbers here in a few days. But let's just say, You know, I predicted that this year alone we'd make it to be $1 million marketplace, and we're going to far surpass that. And all of that's just one of the marketplaces. So it is growing faster than I actually thought it would. But, and I don't talk about this often, I did it at the very beginning, but because I'm the one pushing it with Dave, with Carrie, with all these partners that we have in these marketplaces, I pay 5% in fees. Of course, you got to pay the transaction fee and do all that. And of course, other sellers aren't paying that because it wouldn't make sense for me to do that. Although I did that with Shop Commons. I thought if you're going to try an upstart, you got to sell it on something. And so it was 8% fees, and it was just on the sale of the purchase of the item, as opposed to all these dynamic stuff and all that. It's over everything, and the taxes that go into it and the shipping charges, and you're paying fees on fees, and you're paying fees for the store. You add all that stuff up, it gets crazy. I don't think we're honest with ourselves. That leads to another point. You got to factor this stuff in when you buy. You know, I already get ripped all the time out there on the Picker channel for being like, you know, I'd like to pay $1 for it. It sells for 15, right? You start paying $4 or $5 for an item that sells for 15, and then you pay all this stuff, and you're doing dynamic, and you're doing all these different things. You're not making anything. It's crazy. And so there's a few options that people have out there, and let's go over those real quick. Let me pull one more item. Trying to keep the camera lens out of the rain so it doesn't blur you off here. This one, man, some of y'all might remember this video on the Commonwealth Picker channel. It was one of my best picks of all time. Not this shirt, but this sale. Crazy. I didn't even know I still had stuff left from it, but this has been listed for a long, long time. Loverboy, Keep It Up, 1983 single stitch shirt. It took forever to sell. Signal, and it's a muscle shirt right there. That thing sold forever later, 1995, plus shipping. And no, I did not promote it. And I don't promote much. But, you know, there are things you can do about it. Tech did on his video the other day. He talked about, you know, you got to work harder. You got to sell more. You got to whatever. Okay, I get that. I totally get that. And that might be the push, especially for only eBay sellers. There is a certain amount of people who get so turned off by this stuff that they lose sellers. I personally, I could be wrong, I don't think eBay cares that much. I think they figure they can provide, if the pros are in it only, maybe that'll help them in the long run with the seller, with the buyer base, because you got experienced sellers, and maybe that's the case. But I don't know the numbers, but I wouldn't underestimate the casual seller and the once in a blue moon seller and all those other things that go on, and the people who are borderline seller anyways. I think this is a great time to enter into reselling. I'm probably in the minority, especially when you hear stories like this. But it's because of what's coming. It's because of what's already here and growing. And yes, I do mean live selling, but not just live selling. Matter of fact, more than just live selling, just simply the options. And let's face it, eBay's a technology company. They're not actually selling things. We're doing the selling. So we have a certain amount of leverage. That doesn't mean I'm calling for boycotts, and there's all kinds of ideas, right? You know, I heard somebody say, let's just all band together and not list something. Well, good luck with that, because people are out there and they need to make paycheck. They need to be able to pay their bills. They need to be able to do those things. And a lot of you watching are in that crowd. But keep in mind, this is not the end of the world. This is not coming to the U.S. yet. Certainly has not said it. And I hope it utterly fails over there in those other places, because there comes a tipping point where it does not make sense. And you need to know your own numbers. You need to know your business. There are other options. Yeah, you could work harder. You could sell more. There's only so many hours in a day, though. So one of the options is simply, well, let's start with the dynamic part. Just don't do dynamic. It just keeps escalating, and it's going up and down. And if they did start charging you, like they apparently are over there, for sales made through, what do they call it? What, attribution? It's not even attributed to that click. The sale was not attributed to it, but they're going to attribute it to it. That's crazy. So yes, you could sell more. You could work harder. You know, you could buy cheaper. There's all kinds of things you can do, but they're not necessarily easy. And working harder is impossible for some folks because you already work your fingers to the bone. Of course, finding marketplaces with better fee structures, But those marketplaces can't only just have better fee structures. You got to be able to make sales on them. And I think that's what eBay is betting on right now, that they're still the best place to sell. And in many ways, they're right. But at some point, the cost of the goods on eBay because of this are going to have to rise. And that opens up the door for those competitors even more that have lower fee structures. So they're kind of playing a game here that I think is a little dangerous. $89.95, y'all. New Balance. Check those out. I think it's some kind of special edition. That's a good buy. I'll take that one. $89.95 plus shipping. The fee structure right now, as it stands in the U.S., is already, because they're doing the fee on the shipping part as well. That's a whole debate for another day. We've done that before. It's already pushing those larger items that have low average sale price. It's pushed those out for me. The stuff I used to sell like crazy, like this thing, like that right there. That's not a high dollar seller right there. And some of the other like little coolers and stuff, I used to sell that stuff all the time. It's becoming it doesn't make sense because the shipping price almost meets the selling price, and you're paying that on the whole thing, which means your margins have to be better, which means you got to buy it dirt cheap. So I realize that's a small part of the market, but it is being pushed out. And it limits what you can pick that makes it make sense and profitable. So they're already, I don't know that they're losing market share on that necessarily, because that kind of stuff is a little bit more difficult. But it opens the door wider to live selling, which was part of my problem with Whatnot, which is one of the reasons I wanted to get out. I wanted to provide a product for people that was cheaper in shipping. And, they do priority mail shipping over there. They have their structure set up in a way that doesn't make it economically beneficial for the buyer to buy because of their shipping structure. It's okay, but it's nowhere near as good as what we've done over here on our dibdit marketplaces. And again, I'm not doing this to promote them, which is why I haven't mentioned all of them. I'm not afraid to promote, but there was boxes sitting here the other day. If you remember in the last video, there's a ton of sales going on over there, so I guess I am promoting it. Holy moly. Like every minute there's something selling on one of these marketplaces. So that box right there would have been astronomical anywhere on Whatnot, on whatever, unless they're putting in, there's a max in shipping, and then you're eating the cost, right? But we were able to ship, I was able to ship like 19 orders to the same person, and they got that stuff where the shipping price was way, way cheaper, which is why it makes sense for resellers to source over there as well, which was another draw because most of my audience is resellers. And then the other social media that I do, especially on Facebook and on TikTok, brings in the non-resellers. It helps the resellers out who are selling on there. Long story. I think you get the point. But all of these little things that aren't that little in the end, when you look back 10 years later and it's like, how did we lose this market share that we dominated? These are the things they'll look back on. I think this is a foolish mistake. I hope it truly is a misunderstanding. Maybe I've got high hopes. Maybe I think too high. I don't know. But this is the kind of thing that can really turn sellers off acutely and turn buyers off without even knowing it's turning them off. Because let's face it, the sellers have to make money for them to put their product out there. Nobody's going to be going through all this work to make little or nothing. And then if there's not as much competition, the prices go up, the buyer, it's all part of the free market, right? And it all does have an effect in the end. Here's an example today. This is, we just got done with a record show today. And we sold a bunch. I don't even know how much. And yes, I could have sold them for more on eBay. However, we got them sold really, really quickly. This one we sold on eBay. This one, surprisingly, sells for good money. And it sold quickly. It sold for $19 plus shipping for that one. Marty Robbins, Gunfighter Ballads. There's some strange records. LPs are just killing it right now, and I don't list very many. It's just not my gig. Plus, I don't know how to grade them, and it's not my expertise, so I just usually sell them off live. But I want to make the point with this. If somebody were to go on and buy as many records as they bought for me today, I don't know, we sold 100 of them over there. It would have cost them a fortune in shipping, unless they bought it all from the same person and they gave them a bundle deal. But that doesn't happen very often over on eBay. But we were selling them, after you bought the first one, it was $1 in shipping. So they could have bought a stack of, 50 records and paid $55. If you bought 50 records, you'd be paying $250 or more on eBay if you bought them separately. And you might think, well, who's buying that many records? Well, record collectors are buying that many, for sure. They definitely do. Maybe not all in one sitting, but this way, you can provide a better deal for somebody. It's part of the reason live selling is growing, and those collectors are finding that, which is not what we want to see as eBay sellers. We want those people to hunt out the one that they want and to buy it from us. And if they realize, yeah, I might have to sit through, but if it's a record show, they enjoy that stuff anyways. So I just think that this is a poor decision in so many ways, not just for the sellers, but also for these buyers. And yeah, I realized the criticism earlier, it's like you don't promote, so it's whatever. You have social media and all that. I get it. Hey, there's another option right there. And people, yell at me for doing it, but I've tried to do these things to protect my way of reselling. And having basic social media promotion all the time, like this video you're watching right now, it helps in that process. It doesn't solve it. It doesn't make it, foolproof. Starting these other marketplaces. If I lost eBay today, would I be able to do all this? Well, I'm starting to think, yes, I would probably have to sell not almost entirely, but I'd have to sell live a lot more. But I would still use my social media, and I'd be okay without eBay. I wouldn't want to do it. I would hate to do it, but I would be okay with it because I could afford to take these items and promote them individually. I could do this. I could be like, hey, check this thing. Look at that. That's a real enema. Huh. I could check this thing out, and I could show the eBay comps, and I could be like, but you could buy this over on dibdit.com, and you could get it for this price. Because I don't have to pay ridiculous fees over there. And I could say, hey, and if you buy these other 7 things or buy something in my live show too, the shipping drastically goes down. There's ways you could do it. Now, I don't know if I have the social media power to pull it off completely and not sell over there. Check that out right there, y'all. That's a black back. But doggone it, I'm not going to sit around. I'm going to take a shot at it. I'm not going to sit around and wait. Is this the one I want? This is N64, yeah, Zelda. I'm not, look at the back on that. Which is why I put it a little bit lower. And it's still sold. Well, it's sold, of course, because it is a little lower. $29.95 plus shipping. A lot of times the authentic ones will go for a little bit more than that. But it did have that damage in the back. And I was like, you know what, let's just get it sold. Got such a great deal. We're already in the profit on that buyout. And I'll take that sale. $29.95 plus shipping. So yeah, work harder, sell more. Stop doing dynamic promotion, maybe just set that rate and be like, hey, this is what my business can afford. Buy it cheaper, then maybe you can't afford that. And then, that makes it tougher because the person you're getting it from, they may need to sell it for more. There's all kinds of these issues out there. Man, that thing is going crazy. People must be selling. I told you this wasn't a promotion, so I'm sounding like it's a promotion. But daggone it, this is why I did not ever want to foresee 10 years in the future what I love being taken away from me by just exorbitant fees. Now, I don't think we'll ever get there because there's so much growth and people wanting those secondary market items and a need for it more than, I think, not maybe more than there's ever been, but certainly a growing need over time that there is going to be a winner in this. There will always be a platform, and somewhere, unless the government gets involved with it and regulates stuff out of existence and overtaxes and does whatever. There's always going to be a place for this. There needs to be that competition. I figured, shoot, I'm gonna be the competition. If nothing else, it's grown to the point where it can help me. And I've seen it help more than a handful, dozens of other people, clearly. None of us are selling on there right now. That thing's buzzing like crazy. I'm going to have to turn it off. It's driving me crazy. I just put it in my back pocket, so maybe it won't reverberate so much over there. But speaking of reverberation, I'm struggling today. I had enough coffee, though. I knew I needed some energy, so I drank an energy drink and coffee. I know, don't criticize. I'm staying away from sugar, at least. These kind of effects, I don't think there's unintended consequences to them, because if somebody looks at a record and says, okay, I can get this on eBay for it, and I've got to wait around for 3 years to get the sale or whatever, it drives certain amount of people over to these live selling things, especially if they can get stuff dirt cheap and in bulk, and then they just sell it off at half of eBay, but they're paying so much less in fees, and they're passing on a much better deal to the buyer, and it's in and out, and they're making more money. That's not what eBay should be doing. They should be doubling down on what they do and what they do best, but I think they're pushing people the wrong direction in a time where they cannot afford to. Look at this. I sold another little Zelda back here. I'll go back and grab this one. And here it is right here. And look, this is not doom and gloom, y'all. I'm not doom and gloom. And people that accuse me of it you're just wrong. I'm bullish, extremely bullish. And there's always going to be a place for eBay too. It's just a matter of how big do they want their market share to be in this new world. Maybe they don't care. Maybe it's all just about the profitability and the bottom line. That's okay. But, you know, part of your stock valuation, y'all, is the market share. Zelda, love it. I tell you what, if I ever wanted a sealed Nintendo NES game, any sealed game, I think it would be Zelda. I think that gold case just did it for me when I was a kid, man. And I wasn't even good at hardly any video game. I never beat Mario. But I sat there and watched my brother and his friend do it all the time. And Zelda was one of my favorites, man. That was really cool. So that one sold, I think, for the same price over here. 30 bucks plus shipping. Come on. I'm trust you aren't going to chew on the chair while Turner's sitting in it. You're soaking wet, dogs. Oh, my goodness. All right, what's your joke? Commonwealth comedy for the day. What do you got?
Why should you stand in the corner if you get cold?
Why should you stand in the corner if you get cold? I don't know why.
It's always 90 degrees.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, bud.
Bye.
So this is why I said if you're a beginner in this, I would highly suggest that you not do promoted listings. I would build a model around not needing it. I would figure out systems and ways of sourcing that you didn't need it and slowly build it. I would figure out storage systems, literally, because your velocity of sales may it will decrease unless you're going way low ball, right? And then that's not low ball, but a low priced item on it. I would develop my system around not having to do that. Now, there are systems out there, typically not used by new sellers because they've ramped up and they've systemized their sourcing and got contacts and all that, where that's not the best advice. I realize that. But for that new reseller who's selling like me, the mom and pop stuff, I would this is the first time I've said it, I would not promote if I was a new seller. And I would build my system. I would build my store around a model that didn't need this stuff. Because clearly, if this is where things are going, if you want to pay 25% in fees, you know, and I hear people, you know, I buy at a third of cost, you know, eBay gets a third, eBay and shipping gets a third, I get a third, and the cost of the item is a third. Whew, that's crazy to me. And in all honesty, it's not even realistic anymore. When you calculate in the shipping cost and the fees, it's going to be more than 33% for a lot of people. So I realize this video is going to hit a lot of you in different ways because you're all in different spaces in reselling. And yeah, I do realize that I don't promote. I've built my business around that. I'm promoting it right now, right? So I'm not giving advice for everybody out there, but for the person who sells like me or wants to sell like me, I would build it around a non-promotion strategy and maybe use it occasionally. Would I suggest people go out there and use social media for their promotion? I wouldn't suggest that either. I mean, I hope that some people do and succeed, but I see so many people try and don't succeed. I've said this before. I don't want it to sound like an egomaniac. I was incredibly fortunate to be able to have this audience and to be able to speak to you. And a lot of things fell into place that were completely out of my control. And I'm eternally grateful for that. But I'm not going to sit here and tell people, you got to start a YouTube channel and you got to do this on Instagram. And yes, there's places for all that. And I see so many people succeeding in niches in different places, just in Instagram or just doing whatever and using their time wisely. If it's something you want to do, go for it. But daggone it, you better want to do it because it is a lot of work. I tell people all the time, you know, I get 20% of my sales on view, and I haven't got that lately. What did we have? Do we have any viewer sales today? You know what? I forgot to read one, doggone it. Oh, well. I better do it really quick. It is Jody. Jody, thank you. You're awesome, by the way. Thank you for always being here. Hello, Kevin. Had to grab these cool glasses, and that was those RC cups. I don't think any of these other ones were to viewers necessarily, although I don't see any messages. It's very possible, but like I've said before, I've tracked it for a long time. I estimate it to be between 15 and less than 25% of my sales to viewers. If I spent the 40 hours I spend all across social media reselling, I would have far more sales if I didn't spend it on social media. And that's just the fact. So it's not necessary. Should you start a YouTube channel to get more viewers? No, absolutely not. It's just not wise. Just not wise. But I also don't want to sound like I'm tamping people's dreams down or opportunities down. There are people that do it and are successful, but there are far more who don't do it. And if you are a reseller trying to make extra money and that's your strategy to make extra money, then it will almost always fail. If you just love it, if you love, like I do, talking to people. I mean, I was a teacher, y'all, for 21 years. I talked to people all day long and I talked with them. I was not the teacher that stood up there and everybody, no. It was our classroom. We did it that way. And I needed this in my life when I quit that. So you guys gave that to me. All right. I've ranted and raved today. I'm more than just a little bit. It doesn't even affect me really, but it just doesn't strike right. And I hope that there's clarity and there's questions at eBay. What do they call it? eBay Open, which I've never been to, by the way. I hope that there is some pushback, and I hope that there's clarity going forward in this, because as of right now, I don't like what I'm seeing. That's just my point of view. So anyway, let me know out there if you do promote, if you promote at a certain rate, if you use dynamic, if you have noticed. I did notice a bunch of people, some of the people who sent me messages are like, 80% of my sales are now getting the promoted fee. How could this possibly be? This is crazy. And I don't know. I'm not a promoter, so I don't know what that looks like. Those of you who do promote, what percentage of your sales come through in that promotion? And that's what people always use to tell me, look, this is what's right for me. And that might be true. And they look, I would have half as many sales without a promoter. And I'm like, I'm not so sure about that. You will just have to adjust your business. You might have to lower your price a little bit, sometimes just $1. And then you save that much in the promotion. Or the items might sit a little bit longer. There's all kinds of different ways you can do it without the promotion. And I want to know how many people out there are doing the dynamic promotion. Tell me in the comments below. All right, y'all, we have a sale. I almost pulled it out of here the other day. I don't know where I put stuff. You'd think I'd figure it out. There it is right there. Serious Skincare Reverse Lift. There's another one down there. I wonder if it's the exact same thing. Yep, that's it. $38.95 plus shipping for that one. That's crazy good. All right, I got to break into this video here. Forgive the interlude, but I've been waiting. So this is just for DJ Axel 1860, all right there. That Commonwealth flipper guy, he's a complete fraud. He doesn't tell the people the truth, that he gets paid by eBay on the side. It's all sunshine and lollipops, just like today's video. With the eBay platform, never tells people the reality. Hidden listings, store throttling, etc. Real reseller issues. He's a daily YouTube eBay ad. Banjo time. Hey, I'm a teacher. Trust me. Sorry. I just had to dispel that rumor. Look, that's not what I do on this channel. I've said what I've said so many times, and you know, people just don't believe it. But when they hear stuff out there and they see comments out there like that, they believe that stuff. It's just simply not true. Well, let me say this, and I've said this before, but I'll repeat it right here. I've been paid by eBay in 3 ways over 6 years. I got a $20 worth of eBay gift cards at an event where they were handing them out to people. So, okay, maybe that's true. I had a meeting one time with Adam Ireland and others well, no, I take that back. The meeting was actually digital. This was an event where they asked a scope of people to come and eat dinner and have a conversation with them. I was one of those people. And no, it wasn't just creators. Matter of fact, it was I think 2 people that made any content at all. They got this swath of people, and I was in that swath. And I didn't pay for that dinner. So if you want to call that payment, you can call it payment, but don't call me a liar. All right. And the last thing was I did an ad for them many moons ago about when they were pushing, or not promoted. I've got that on my mind. When they were encouraging people to enter into the international shipping thing. And the commercial was basically, hey, you don't have to do anything different. It was taking the people who were scared of it, like they had to take the process and whatever, and just explaining, no, eBay will handle it. They'll back you up on the sales and whatever. I felt very comfortable doing that, and they gave me, it wasn't a huge amount of money. They gave me a little bit of money to do that ad. So now the banjo and the teacher thing is kind of funny, but I really do hope people can trust me. And yes, I am going to, for the mass populace out there, for the folks who were like me, who needed a side hustle, I will praise eBay because of what, not just eBay, but reselling in general. I'm not wedded to eBay. I just like it. I like the way it works. It works best for me. And, you know, it is what it is. But if you watch this channel, you would not have a comment like that, because I am not all, what does he call it? Sunshine and lollipops. I like to be sunshine and lollipops. I don't like to complain. I like to, the idea of taking the tact of working harder, selling more, that's usually my mentality. But in cases like this, I think it's a much bigger scope that we need to look at. You know, I just had to go up here and get my heater out. I cannot believe it. It is chilly in here today. I hope this thing changes quickly. One more thing. I do want people to trust me, but I don't want people to just believe everything that I say, because everything is different for different folks and people have different experiences. And, you know, there should be some trustworthiness, and I hope people out there trust me, but don't trust completely anybody. You really need to do your legwork, and you need to look at these issues yourself. And I think that's just a good rule of thumb out there. So I appreciate the folks that like to listen and like to hear my, you know, popping off at the mouth and the top of the head sometimes. And sometimes I just get emotional about it. But listen, I love reselling. I've said this 100 times. I will do whatever it takes, not whatever it takes, that I can handle ethically, I suppose, in order to protect it. Not just for me, for everybody, but let's face it, for me first. I mean, that's what we do. We act in our own best interest. But that doesn't mean we lie. That doesn't mean we do things like this guy accused me of. Doesn't mean you do things that you're not comfortable with your conscience. It just means you act in your own best interest in a way that you are satisfied with and you can be proud of. All right, Reagan, this sale is not on CommonwealthPicker.com. It is on... What is going on?
Why?
It is on Dibdit.com. All right.
Lone Star Picker got a CWP sticker.
All right. Now tell everybody else where to get their... They can get it on Dibdit, but where else can they get their sticker?
And don't forget to get your sticker at CommonwealthPicker.com.
Reagan just got home from practice, and it's raining. And when it rains, the dogs go crazy. Thank y'all. And you know what that might include? That might include people out there rubbing their hands together right now saying, man, I hope these other people stop promoting. I hope these new sellers don't do the promoted. I hope they don't do the dynamic, because it'll bring the rate down and I'm going to take advantage of it. And that's part of this game too. And eBay bets on that stuff. And that's what happens. You know, the whole idea of mass boycotts and mass whatever, there's always somebody going to work in their own best interest. It's the same idea with... You know, if nobody would make any content about reselling, then the thrift stores wouldn't be so expensive. Well, if there's an appetite for reselling, first of all, I don't agree with the argument, but if there's an appetite for the content, somebody's going to make it. If it's not going to be me, it's going to be somebody else. Same kind of argument. Thank y'all for joining us, and I can't wait to see you next.